Hi, my name is Rachel and today we're doing another Authors Behaving Badly. Today's author is Patrick Rothfuss, but I say that with a caveat. This video could have been done a year ago. I didn't do it until now because he just recently said something that made me uncomfortable, but it's very specific. Remember how I did a 3-part Authors Behaving Badly series on Cassandra Clare? Because there were just so many issues. Patrick Rothfuss is kind of another case of that. I could do a second part of this if you would like, but I'd be here 6 hours if I detailed everything that has been an issue. So today we're just gonna focus in on Patrick Rothfuss in the way that he talks about women. Hi, I am also having Carlos react to blog posts later in the video. So this is me saying that Carlos is also in this video.
I'm here.
Yes. He's so happy. Recently, we've had a lot of conversations about misogyny on this channel. It often brings in some interesting characters, and I assume that this comment section will be no different. Let's just all keep it classy in the comment. We are all gentle folks here. Biggest gentleman here, though, is my husband, who, when I explained what Patrick Rothfuss recently said, was also concerned. We had a good long talk about pipelines to ideologies. Speaking of which, my brother is also a huge Patrick Rothfuss fan, and I have not broached the subject with him. I'm afraid. He's not done as much work to understand misogyny as my husband has. I like that I can explain what authors are doing to Carlos, and he's down to have like such in-depth discussions about it. In cases like this, it always leads to great talks about masculinity, which I'm always down to talk about. We love Carlos here. If you want to be as cool as my husband, you can read bell hooks. I'm just saying, for the 511th time. But you can also grab yourself the same wallet I just grabbed my husband. I snagged him a new one. The holiday season is coming up, and I got him a new Ridge wallet in his favorite color, purple. And you can avoid giving bad gifts to your loved ones this holiday season, as I am ought to do, and get your loved ones Ridge products, and their Black Friday deals are live now, so act as fast as you can to get the best offers. Ridge has redefined everyday carry essentials. Ridge wallet expands to hold up to 12 cards, less room for cash, while remaining as slim as possible. They have 30 plus colors and styles, including leather if you want to go the more traditional route, but they also got these like almost pastel colors that I really love, especially the purple and the blue. AirTag attachments are also available on every relevant product, so you'll never lose your essentials again. And Ridge wallets and key cases make great gifts, and you can make it personalized with text or a design to add that special touch to your gift. They're designed with RFID blocking materials that protect you from digital pickpocketers. Someone asked me how I get the cards out of my Ridge wallet, so I will show you. There's this handy little thing right here, so you push the cards up and then you just grab what you need. The 99-day risk-free trial lets you give the perfect present worry-free. You can send it back for a full refund if your gift recipient does not love it, which I think they will. And a lifetime warranty ensures that your gift is not just for now, it's for life. These things are sturdy. You can also get 30% off your order when buying the Ridge wallet and key case together. 2 daily essentials, 1 great deal. Carlos and I both use the key cases, and actually so does my aforementioned brother. I have slowly moved more and more people into the Ridge fold, and you can join us, one of us. You can shop the holiday sale by going to ridge.com/readswithrachel and get up to 30% off through December 20th. But again, their Black Friday deal is running now, so click the link down below, plus use my link below, and you can get entered for free for a chance to win a Ridge bundle worth $4,000. So click that link below, and thank you to Ridge for sponsoring today's video. Patrick Rothfuss is an American fantasy writer and author of the very popular books The Name of the Wind and The Wise Man's Fear, which, by the way, oh my god, I just found my copy of Fourth Wing. I couldn't find that bitch for the last month. Oh, this is Game of Thrones. This isn't The Wise Man. Oh, this is The Wise Man's Fear. Okay, so before we even get into this, let's not pretend that I am a woman on the internet who has not read these books. Now, technically, I should add the caveat of I was mad that he had not finished this series. What is this? Oh my god, this is my grandparents' Christmas tree. That's what I was using as a bookmark when I read this? Rachel, my god, get it together. I have not finished the last 50 pages of this because that was me being spiteful. I was like, well, if he's not going to finish the series, then I'm not going to finish the book. So I don't know what happened in the last 50 pages of The Wise Man's Fear. 50? Was it 50? In a 1,000-page book. Good god. I want to say it was 50. It might have been 25. I don't know. I didn't finish a little bit of the last of this out of spite. But yes, I have, other than that, read these books. No, I have not read the novellas. I know that makes me a fake fan. All the men are screaming at me. I can feel it. I'll be honest, I enjoyed quite a bit about these books, which is why I bought them with my own money. There's a lot that I enjoy about these. series. There's also a lot that I don't. And all of the elements that I don't like pertain to his portrayal of women. The synopsis reads, a tale of the magically gifted young man who grows to be the most notorious wizard the world has ever seen. So back when I reread Name of the Wind and finally read Wise Man's Fear, except for that last little bit, I gave them both 5 stars. If I were to read it now, I would not be as generous. I'm not really in a space where I have patience for implicit misogyny or explicit misogyny, but I don't have patience for implicit misogyny when I read anymore. I'm just not able to ignore it like I used to. It was just something that, like, as a woman, I was just like, expected to take, and now I'm like, I actually can expect more out of my books. What a concept. Because usually if misogyny is written into a book in this way, it's because the author holds those beliefs outside of the book as well, and now I'm uncomfortable with that. I can't unsee it. We see this with Ernest Cline as well. In fact, those two cases have a lot in common. I think The Name of the Wind has a lot of great parts, a compliment that I do not give to Ready Player One. But since reading it, I've read books that give me the same feeling of awe without me having to actively ignore the way that women are talked about and treated. I've seen similar discussion around the Witcher books by Andrzej Sapkowski, which I've only read the first part of the first book, so I can't really speak to that very much. My friend Madi from My Name is Martinez has talked about this, and I will leave a link down below. But I didn't talk about Patrick Rothfuss versus women. And then last month, someone sent me a video of Patrick Rothfuss in conversation with another author, a woman who you might recognize. No shade. The shade is all on Patrick. Somebody sent me this, and my jaw was just on the floor, and I sent it to Carlos, and I was like, what the fuck? So let me show you what he said.
And here's the thing. Everyone, ethical responsibility of the storyteller time. The moral of that story is this young woman did not need to let this man have control of her. That's the moral of the story. That's what you should have carried away from it. And you did not, because they fucked up, and they had good writing, and David Bowie is sexy as fucking 10 Lokis. Bowie was too sexy, and the whole moral of the thing got fucked up because all the women are like, oh, David Bowie, she doesn't understand you like I do. I can fix you. Please offer me everything. And yes, be my slave, but also talk to me like that, look at me like that, sing to me like that, steal my kid, take me away, trap me somewhere. And it fucked up an entire generation of young women who like fantasy. And they got together with the wrong dudes who treated them like David Bowie said he would. And they got all fucked up and traumatized. And now I can't date anyone because men are evil. But it's them. It's the other dudes. It wasn't me. I didn't do anything to you. An entire generation of women found the wrong thing attractive in that movie. And it really caused a lot of harm.
I made this meme in response here, this meme right here, and I shared it to my husband when I was talking to him about this. And Carlos's response to this clip of Patrick and my genius meme was to say this: yeah, based on his rage, he did it too and is trying to cover it up. Dudes that didn't do it, don't act like that. Source, I work with men. I am a man. I am friends with men. I can't say for sure how he treats his romantic partners. What I can tell you is that based on what I will show you today, talk about today, I think Patrick does struggle very deeply with misogynistic attitudes towards women, but I doubt he recognizes them as misogyny, rather than seeing misogyny as like a range of behavior, which it is. And I have discussed this before, where there is implicit and explicit misogyny. Patrick seems to be of the belief that misogyny just looks like abusive boyfriends akin to Jareth, and women who are raised on Labyrinth now only for going for those kinds of men, and now he can't get a date because of it, because he's one of the good ones. What do you know about Patrick Rothfuss?
Nothing. What do you write?
The Name of the Wind is an extremely popular fantasy series, especially amongst men. And he has not released the 3rd book, but he keeps releasing novellas. Mm-hmm. This came out in, I want to say, well, the sequel I think came out in 2010. Oh, this is a first printing of paperback. It'll be worth something someday, maybe. This is an extremely popular fantasy series. It's very chunky. This one is long. The second one is like over 1,000 pages. And they're not bad. There's like a fantasy school in them. The main character character, Quoth. You like the first book, you set it up, and there's this dude named Chronicler who shows up at this this sort of like a boarding house / bar that Quoth runs with this kid named Bast. As you can tell already, there's a lot of men. It's not a bad book, it's just that the way that the women are talked about in the book, it's been documented by other women. How odd it is. In the second book, there is a sex goddess that Quoth as a 16-year-old goes, and he's like the only dude to ever return from hanging out with the sex goddess. So, and then his love interest, Denna, is basically a manic pixie dream girl. So it's not very fun to be a woman
in that world.
It's sort of, it could be better, certainly. And like even the way that women are talked about in passing, like Quoth says to his apprentice or whatever you want to call Bast, hold the sword like a lady, not like a whore. So it's like implicit misogyny. But Patrick Rothfuss says he's a feminist.
Sounds like it.
So I'm gonna read you some blog posts from Patrick Rothfuss and get your perspective on it. Okay, so this one is from 2012. This is him answering fan mail. Dear Pat, life got busy for me earlier this year. I fell behind on reading your blog now that school's back up, blah blah blah. I've got a couple questions. You talked about going to see Cabin in the Woods. In the blog you said, my plan is to go see it, preferably in the company of an attractive, easily startled young woman. That way when the movie gets scary, she will cling to me desperately for comfort.
Who said that?
Patrick.
Oh.
This struck me as a little odd. In your biography, you describe yourself as a feminist. That doesn't seem like a feminist sort of thing to say. In your opinion, does it seem like... Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't say that.
You wouldn't say?
I wouldn't say that at all.
Oh, because you're a feminist and you feel like that's not... Okay.
That's not appropriate.
Okay. Yeah, I don't feel like it is either.
I don't even know what the context. It's like, in what context that would be appropriate. It's just weird.
It's a weird thing to say.
Is that like protectory bullshit that men think that they need to be?
Yes. It gets worse. There's an art.
I'm sure.
Yeah. I'm not trying to pick a fight here, honestly. I'm just genuinely curious. One of my favorite things about your books is how you handle your female characters. Me and this person disagree very much. And that's okay. Strong and smart and well, kind of real. When you first hear about Denna, the love interest, it's like several paragraphs of just talking about how beautiful she is. So...
Is she fine though?
They're not generic stereotypes and helpless maids in need of saving. They're not cliche. So my questions are, was The Cabin in the Woods any good? And how do you reconcile being a feminist and at the same time wanting to have pretty young girls cling to you for comfort? That is a very good question. He says, okay, here we go. First off, we have to leave aside a huge in-depth discussion of what specifically feminism is, because that's a big, big topic. It's a whole book's work.
Yes, tell me what feminism is.
Let alone a book.
Yes, that's what I need is a man to tell me about feminism. But go off.
Suffice it to say that there are roughly as many types of feminism as there are feminists. I don't know that I agree with that. I think that there are like several principles.
There's men who pretend that they're feminists in order to get women.
Yeah.
And they only say the things that they think that people want to hear, but deep down they're just using that title to do misogyny.
I don't know about you, but this to me feels like he's just being like, feminism is just too big of a concept for us to talk about right now.
It's a broad spectrum, and it's like, all right.
It just feels like sort of a cop-out because it's actually really easy to define feminism. And then
listen, what you said right there was fucked up. Somebody said something about it.
Yeah.
And this is how you backtrack?
Yeah.
Here's why what I said is fine, actually. Because women are actually, weaker, and they need my protection. Like, where are you going with this argument?
I bet you can't guess where we are going with this. It's nowhere great, which means it's really complicated. And believe me, it leads to some really interesting discussions when feminists get together and talk. And I'm not being catty when I say that. Yeah, sure. Sometimes when feminists get together, they fight, like Paglia and Steinem. Out of all the ways that this could have gone, we could have said there are many different types of feminism. You could have feminists like Andrea Dworkin, who's anti-sex work. You can have people like Angela Von Davis and Bell Hooks. Instead, he's like, when feminists get together, sometimes they fight. We could have left that out and explained instead what feminism is.
He's like, no, it's cool. I want you guys to be able to vote and shit. But I still think that I should be able to act however I want in a manner that is me being superior to you in social interactions.
I want to remind you that this is the same person I sent you that video clip of him saying that this is the guy that said, women don't pick me to date because...
Oh.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
It's all coming together.
Yeah. Surprised it's the same guy.
Yeah. Women don't pick me to date because they were taught by Labyrinth instead to pick men who treat them like shit. That's what he said.
Yeah, the whole nice guy argument.
The nice guy argument.
Yeah, women don't want a nice guy, so you talk shit about them? You think little of women, and you think that makes you a nice guy? You assume all women want?
Yeah, it's not a very feminist thing to say 11 years after this.
It only take a conversation with a couple women to realize that that's not true.
Literally.
Just using what he thinks these groups are, which they're groups of women. He thinks that if there is a conversation revolving feminism in those groups of women, that they're going to argue. I don't think it actually happened.
I don't think so.
I think that the groups that he's in that are arguing are groups of men.
I agree.
It's crazy when you talk about feminism with men to try to get them to kind of deconstruct all the shit that they believe and the shit that they were taught, because you call them out for it and then they immediately get defensive and it starts, turns into arguments.
Yeah.
It's why I don't enter those conversations with anybody under the age of 25. No offense
No.
to people under 25. It's just, it's hard. It's easy.
I mean, you and I were not there at 25.
It's almost, it's immediate. Like you notice immediately whether or not they're receiving the information openly, or if they're waiting for their chance to talk and argue their point because they read one book about being a man in society written by a rich guy.
Yeah, I'm with you. If I were asked for a very general, simple definition of feminism, well, honestly, if somebody asked me that, I'd probably avoid the question. No shit. Partly because I'd suspect them of wanting to start a fight, and also because there is no simple definition. Yes, there is.
You can have a conversation without fighting.
Alexa, what's the definition of feminism?
Feminism is the advocacy of women's rights based on the equality of the sexes. It is the theory that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities.
That is the basic definition of feminism. And then it branches off from there. Yeah. You have a conversation about intersectionality. Because when we get into the idea of sex-based rights, then we're talking about transphobia. As I said, it's a pretty complicated thing. It's not. It has a baseline definition that you then jump off of. But if I were pressed for a definition, I'd say something like this. 1, feminism is the belief that women are worth as much as men.
He could have just Googled the definition instead of making, no one's telling you to define it yourself when there's already a definition that is universally
Why is he doing about feminism what my mom does about communism?
Yeah.
Let me just make up my own definition. No, that's not how that works. This means that women should be treated as fairly as men. This means that women should be as respected as much as men. This means that women should have the same rights as men.
It's almost there. You got one thing,
so
right?
It got one thing. It's so close.
Yeah,
but
1 for 5 so far.
2, feminism is the belief that women shouldn't have to do things just because they're women, and men shouldn't have to do things just because they're men.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't.
That's not wrong.
You don't have to.
I just feel like the way that we got to that was weird.
Yeah. No, I'm saying. I mean, it's fine. It's just this guy. It seems like if this is recent, he is. And
this was 11 years ago.
These blog posts. I fucking hope that he is still on his journey.
Well, that's the thing is,
He's not?
It was last month that he said that women don't pick him a nice guy because of Jareth from, oh my god, the movie. The movie has left my brain. It's a Faye movie where the guy treats the girl like shit.
Which one?
You know what? That's very fair. That's very fair. That could have gone for Akatar. Woof.
All of them.
Oh no.
A lot of them.
Labyrinth. It's Labyrinth.
I haven't seen Labyrinth.
Yeah, so technically neither have I. And as an example, ladies shouldn't feel obliged to shave their armpits just because some fucked up societal pressure that started.
It's always the armpit thing. It's always. I'm serious.
No, you're not wrong. But it also means that if you want to shave your armpits, that's cool too. It's not like you're letting down all of womankind if you do. A more serious example of this relates to raising kids. Women shouldn't feel obliged to be stay-at-home moms, but if you want to be a stay-at-home mom and it makes you happy, then you should feel free to do that. It doesn't mean you're not a feminist. It doesn't mean you're an, I don't think he's supposed to say this. It doesn't mean you're an Uncle Tom or Aunt Thomasina or whatever. I don't think you're supposed to use Uncle Tom in that context. The key in my opinion is that people in general, and women in particular, shouldn't feel obliged to do things due to pointless, bullshitty cultural constraints, including, and here's where number 3 comes into effect big time, the cultural constraints put on them by other feminists with differing viewpoints. He sort of lost me there.
He's making an argument about feminists with different viewpoints, but he's being a dude that is being molded by other men with different viewpoints.
100%. Yeah.
The argument goes both ways. This is kind of like a self-snitching situation. This is where I usually, if I do engage in these conversations with people, I ask where they heard it and why they think it, to try to get them to walk themselves into, because I want it to be true. Like, even from the beginning, like, his whole, I want her to, when she's scared or whatever, seek me, dive into me for comfort.
Yeah.
And it's like, why?
Yeah.
Why do you feel like you need to do that? Because other men have told you? Okay.
No,
But,
literally
like,
he's about to say that, actually. I mean, yeah, technically.
You don't have to do everything that other men do. You're talking about societal norms, and you're this is because of a societal norm put upon men to be this stoic protector all the time, and you're falling for it. You want to be a stoic, and that's fine, if you want that, but like
I would question why.
Yeah,
I would question why your masculinity hinges on that for you. Why your masculinity hinges upon you having a woman act out a certain role.
Yeah, your worth and value as a man is dependent on that. Then you need to fix that.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay to, worst case scenario, I want to be the protector of my family, but not because I'm a man. Because if anything happens, I'd want it to happen to me instead of you guys, and that's just out of love, not out of me protecting my manhood. And I expect that you would want to do the same.
So
I feel like it has nothing to do with my masculinity.
Yeah.
It's just human nature at that point.
So I think that reaffirming our masculinity or femininity within ourselves is a good thing, but I think that using another person as an actor in order to act out a role to make us feel more feminine or masculine is dehumanizing to that person. So I think what he's hoping to do is having women fulfill a certain role in order to make him feel more masculine is anti-feminist. Yeah. I wish that he could see that. Here's where it really goes downhill. The key, in my opinion, is that people in general, and women in particular, shouldn't feel obliged to do things due to pointless, shitty cultural constraints, including, and here's where number 3 comes into effect big time, the cultural constraints put on them by other feminists with different viewpoints. Okay, then it goes downhill. Other folks have different opinions, and there's more to it than that, of course. I could go on and on, but this isn't really the place for it, as your question relates mostly to how I reconcile my being a feminist with a sentiment that, to put it plainly, reeks of machismo. So he admits that and does no self-reflection on it. My justification, he justifies it, comes from 2A and 3A. I don't have to act like a big testosterone alpha male protector of the women's. WIMMINS. This means that if I feel like it, I can indulge myself and play the part of manly protector if, and this is key, I'm not a dick about it. I disagree because you are asking women to fulfill a certain role in order to make you feel that way.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, it feels good to be a big tough protector sometimes. Other times it feels good being protected. And like you said, this is the part where I would ask why. It's like when you're spooning. Sometimes you're the big spoon, sometimes you're the little spoon.
I'm never the little spoon. You will not let me.
I don't like it. I can't get my arm around you in a way that feels satisfactory.
My large masculine
You have enormous shoulders. How am I supposed to get over those? I can little spoon the kids because they're tiny. I can little spoon the cat.
Because they're cats.
Because they're cats. Here's the problem. There are precious few chances to be a big, tough protector in our civilized society. And honestly, that's a good thing.
And then that's where you start asking, what do they need protection from?
That's a good question.
Why would they need to be protected? And then that starts the whole conversation.
I think that's what he is saying to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Okay,
I think
good.
that's what he is saying by saying, and honestly, that's a good thing. However, he's still saying he wants that. I don't know. But watching...
And if a large group of men want that, then there's going to be a large group of men that are going to need to be, you're going to need to defend your people from. So...
Ew, it's self-sustaining.
Yeah.
Ew.
That's why there needs to be a whole cultural shift in order for anything to be done.
But watching a scary movie, that's different than what normally makes women scared.
Yeah.
When I'm sitting in the dark theater and the woman sitting next to me screams and grabs me, her fingernails digging into my chest. Sorry, my broad, manly chest. It feels a deep-seated gorilla-type need to occasionally feel like a big, damn heroic protector. This is where he starts going into this piece where he's like, oh, I can brush it off. I can pass it off as a mammalian instinct. And that's just not true. Mammals don't have the same gender construct. They don't have gender.
Yeah, it's about survival at that point.
They have normal constructs around what their sex is most of the time, and then sometimes they deviate from that. But there is no gender in mammalian culture. Is that the word? There's no gender in fucking lions. There's no they don't experience gender the same way that we do. So I don't get it. They experience actual fear, and you don't see them needing a female lion to fulfill a certain need in order to make the male lion feel masculine, because they don't have that. So no.
Yeah, there's only a parent and kid response with that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just protecting or what's it called, survival.
Now, I'm not saying that's how I'd like to live my whole life, but that's one of the best things about horror movies. They're not real life. They're like emotional cardio. They give us the chance to be terrified in a consequence-free environment. I don't feel like it's consequence free if you're making somebody live out a role for you in order to make your masculinity affirmed.
It's just weird because the comment was hopefully, and what if they're not? What if they're not clinging to you? Is it a bad date now? Is it date's over? Like, so you want a person, like, you want that person to be scared and cling on to you. Otherwise, what's the next? What if they don't? Then where do you go from there? Did you not enjoy it now? Because the question was about if you're going to see a movie.
Yeah.
So is your enjoyment of the movie based on whether or not the person that you go see it with is clinging on to you? That's why that comment is just unneeded altogether. And that's why I would never say anything like that, because it just does, like, we can sit here and dissect it all we want. We can have him in the room dissecting it, and it still at the end of the day was something that just didn't need to be said, because the question was, are you going to see the movie? Answer should have been, yes, I'm really excited to see it. You know, when you add on all that extra shit, it's like, who did you think you were talking to right there? I'm glad that the person came back and was like, hey, that's kind of weird. Like, weird. Who did you think you were? Did you think you were in a group of the boys? This stuff doesn't come out when they're trying to impress other women.
Yeah.
This comes out when they're trying to impress other men. So.
Yeah, I agree, because now we're 11 years later, and he's trying to relate to the women by saying, look at all these bad boys you chose. And
it makes him really fucking uncomfortable and not trust you.
Yeah.
As a man. Like.
And he says, and you know what? I'm going to be completely honest with you here. Occasionally, it's nice to have an attractive young woman cling to you in a moment of pure animal terror.
Does he? I mean, and then there's the other adjectives there. Attractive young woman.
Oh, I didn't even pick up on that.
Like, why are they, like, young? How old is this guy? Why does he want, why can't he just say a woman?
He's 50, so at this point he would have been 40.
He's 40 years old?
At the time.
Talking about a young woman. So I'm just going to assume somebody in their 20s. Like, it's not even appropriate. Because if the roles were switched, you guys would be saying all kinds of stuff.
So there's art that was made of this that he put into the post.
Yeah, see, it's the, I don't want to use the name, but it's the dream of very popular misogynists.
Are you talking about Andrew Tate?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can say Andrew Tate here. Fuck that guy.
It's the Tateism.
It's like, Tateism, yeah.
You want to be older and in shape and wealthy and have women throwing themselves at you. And that's what's selling in these circles.
Yeah.
Is not just happiness, it's here's the bar now.
And also women, again, are an object used to reaffirm your masculinity. I know this because...
Which, you know what? Fine. But when you have a platform like this, now you're perpetuating that type of, man that you want to be. And if you're going to keep doubling down and you're now making these other, easily influenced young men that may or may not follow you see this and go, see, now that's who I want to be. See that picture you just drew? That's who I want to be. That's what I want.
Yeah.
And before you're 25, that is what you want. Like, realistically, and it's because of what we're taught growing up.
Yeah.
You want women throwing themselves at you. You want to be that's why there's so much scuffling in that age group, so much fights in those age groups over minor things like looking at somebody's girlfriend. You have to be this man that society tells you to be and be this stoic protector and, over something so minor that you could just be like, well, I have an attractive woman who, I look at her in that way.
Yeah.
It happens. Men are gross sometimes. Just fucking ignore it and move about your day. Who is she with at that point in time?
Yeah.
You
I think that the thing that he's talking about with Labyrinth, where women want this certain kind of guy, in fantasy that may be true, but only because fantasy, like he admits himself, that's a safe place to play that stuff out. It's the same reason why, like, you've been watching horror movies recently.
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah.
I've been reading more horror the last few years. It's because it's a safe place to experience those things.
I think the people that write those things, like, in a different scenario, are perpetuating things like that, and it's weird to think. Not all of them. Yeah. Not all of them. Some are just horror obsessed people, but that's just mine.
Well, I told you about the Matt Shaw situation where he was writing like really aggressively sexist stuff into his extreme horror books, and even wrote about a real person, Amber Heard. There are people who I am concerned about who write these things, but the enjoyers of that content, I don't think that women.
Specific.
I think that men perceive that women like this stuff outside of books.
Yeah.
When books are just the safe place to experience it without all the stuff that actually comes in the real world with that. If a man is saying like, you're mine, and beating up other men in a book, and you're watching that happen and you're like, oh, good book. It's a lot different than living with a man who's doing that because your life is in danger in the real world in a way that it's not when you're experiencing it in a book. And I think that
it's like the 50 Shades of Grey era.
Yeah, I mean, even we were shitting on that back then. And we were buying into that idea that, oh, women want that. No. The women reading that were not wanting that. We were just regurgitating what we had heard because of implicit misogyny, internalized misogyny. He continues saying, I know this because I went to see the original Scream with two pretty young women back in the day. They sat on either side of me and I got it in stereo. Simply put, it It was awesome. They both grabbed me at the same time, one of them hiding her face in my shoulder, and at that moment, I felt like Batman, Malcolm Reynolds, and the next avatar of Krishna all rolled up into one. Part of me, the educated feminist part, feels like I should be apologetic for this. Like I should feel guilty about it. But you know what? I'm really not. No one is harmed by this behavior. I disagree. How do you feel about that?
He's a feminist when it benefits him.
Yeah.
But as far as no one being harmed, sure. But like I said before, there are younger men that are going to be influenced by this if they were to see it, if they look up to you and stuff like that. And that's mainly that's my main concern is the audience and the people that are like seeing this and receiving it. My main concern.
To me, this feels written like a person who doesn't really have a good answer for why he still feels
I don't even have
need.
a good response to the last piece. And then like, do you, man? But stop like
I think,
setting this bar for people, if you will.
Yeah, I think that the only reason he feels, it's not because of some mammalian thing.
And I think that age is a big proponent to this too.
Yeah, the only reason he feels that way is because he has seen that in other men. That has been raised up as the pinnacle of masculinity to him, and now he feels the need to try to recreate that scene using women as actors in this scene constructed to make him feel more masculine rather than just being with women and enjoying their company and vice versa. Yeah. That's weird.
It is weird. And on top of that, like, these are not things that personally, when I'm only 32, but personally, these are not things that I care about. Maybe, you know, and I get told all the time, oh, it's because you're not single. It's because you're not single. Okay, but if I were single and I'm already 32 years old, I'm going to want somebody that's had the same amount of life experience as me. And him being, 40 at the time of posting this, you would think he'd have this is a 25-year-old mindset.
Yeah.
Like, no offense to 25-year-olds, but
I would say even younger than that.
These are things that I would have wanted when I was 18 to 25.
Yeah.
Or 16 to 25.
Yeah.
Like, these are things that I would care about. I wouldn't say wanted, that I actually would care about. Now is don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Single or not. Like, it's just this really silly thing to like care so much about that you're gonna write an essay on it. An essay justifying your comment that somebody said, hey, as a feminist, like, cool, you can have that mindset, just remove the whole I'm a feminist, because you're not. It seems like you're just using that label to get women to maybe read your book or use that label.
It's a bare minimum
get
thing.
into circles with women.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And as an older man in your 40s, I don't know, like, there's a lot more, there's no like immature 40-year-old women.
You know how
there's no like 40-year-old women that are ignorant. There's less, I should say, that are ignorant to the feminist movement and feminism itself.
Yeah.
Like, is that why you want the younger women?
Yeah.
Because you want them to be ignorant to these things that you want out of them.
Yeah, and they need to be a certain kind of participator.
And they have to be pretty.
And they have to be pretty.
No matter what you look like,
in
they have
order
to be
to
pretty.
fill out this fantasy that he's constructed in order to emulate another man. Which is why he says, I feel like Batman.
Just be yourself, man.
Well, you know how we talk about how, like, with our parents, sometimes there were entire situations in which our parents acted like completely different people and treated us as if we had a completely different relationship with them in order to be perceived as a certain kind of parent, which was entirely for them and not for our benefit.
And it's the same as grandparents too. So Facebook grandparents.
The Facebook grandparents, exactly. That's what Patrick Rothfuss is doing, except with women in a gender capacity rather than a parent-to-child capacity. So the other thing that he said is about The Hobbit, the movies. He was concerned, this was back in 2012 when the movies were about to come out, and he says stuff like, I can tell in my bones that the movie is going to be chock full of scenes that were never in the original story. I'm not talking about added dialogue, blah, blah, blah. And he's right. The adaptation was very different than the book. I mean, it's 3 movies and the book is like this big. Yeah. It's down there somewhere, I could pull it out. It's very short. They did add a lot of stuff. They did. And so instead of just leaving it at that, he does what he did in the book as well, where he was talking, Quoth was talking to Bast, and he's like, hold the sword as if it's a lady, not a whore. He does that exact thing, which is called the Madonna whore complex, where it puts women in this binary of either you are this perfect virginal Madonna and you are worth something, or you are a whore and you are worth nothing. He does that same thing here. So I'm going to read it to you. You know what it's going to be like? The movie. It's going to be like wandering onto an internet porn site and seeing a video of a girl I had a crush on in high school. You probably knew someone like her. The smart girl, the shy girl, the one who wore glasses and was a little socially awkward. The one who screwed up the curve in chemistry so you got an A- instead of an A. She was a geek girl before anybody knew what a geek girl was, and that was kind of awesome because you were a geek boy before being a geek was culturally acceptable. You liked her because she was funny and she was smart and you could actually talk to her, and she read books. And sure, she was girl-shaped and that was cool, and she was cute in an understated freckly way, and sometimes you'd stare at her breast when you were supposed to be paying attention in biology, but you were 16.
You're getting really fucking specific. Who hurt him?
You were staring at everyone's breasts back then. And yeah, you had some fantasies about her because, again, you were 16, but they were fairly modest fantasies about making out.
And they were yours. Now she's out here on the internet. Mm-hmm. It's weirdly possessive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But they were modest fantasies. Maybe you'd get to second base. Maybe you could steal third if you were lucky. And maybe, just maybe, something delightful and terrifying might happen. And yeah, it would probably be awkward and fumbling at times, but that's okay because she'd be doing half the fumbling too. Because the only experience either one of you had was from books, and afterwards, if you make a Star Wars joke, you know she'll get it and she'll laugh.
What the fuck does that have to do with Hobbit? Like,
nothing.
He really needed to get that out. And I don't want to talk. I'm not trying to make fun of the dude, but
it's
weird.
awkwardly specific.
It's really specific, and it doesn't make sense as an argument.
It gets worse.
I'm sure it does. I'm waiting for it to make sense.
Other shoe's about to drop. That's the girl you fell in love with in high school. You didn't have a crush on her because she was some simmering pool of molten sex. You loved her because she was subtle and sweet and smart and special. How many fucking S words did we need there? So you stroll onto this porn site, and there she is, except now she's wearing a thong and a black leather halter top. She's wearing fuck me red lipstick and a lot of dark eye makeup. Her breasts are amazing now, proud and perfectly round.
She had a glow up. Good for her.
I'm happy for her, to be honest. Someone's taught her to dance, and she does it well. She's flexible and tan.
She has a hobby? Mad as fuck about a hobby.
Someone's taught her to dance, and she does it well. She's flexible and tan. She has a flat midriff and walks like a high-class Vegas stripper. Her eyes are dark and smoldering. She has a riding crop, and she likes to be tied up, and her two red mouth forms a perfect circle as she sighs and moans.
You know that this is acting, though, also.
And tosses her head in a performance designed to win any number of Academy Awards. I guess he does know it's acting. And what's the problem with this? Well, in some ways, nothing. What you found is perfectly good porn, maybe even great porn. But in other ways, the problem is blindingly obvious. This girl has nothing in common with your high school crush except for her social security number. Everything you loved about her is gone.
That's a weird way to say that the movie's not going to resemble the book at all. It's a weird way to go about it.
I've never...
And it's again at the expense of a woman.
100%.
Even if I don't think this woman's made up because of how specific that story was. Even if it is a made-up woman, it's like, I'm mad, therefore I have to tell you this scenario about women being women and me being mad about it.
This could easily have been...
Women living a life that I don't agree with.
This could easily have been a food dish comparison.
Anything.
It could have been another book-to-movie adaptation.
Anything. You could literally... I tried to replicate a dish from a restaurant, and it turned out poorly.
But instead, we went with this.
Yeah.
We loved the sweet, shy, freckly girl. We still remember her name after all these years. She lives close to our heart. Seeing her in her lipstick and stiletto heels dancing on a pole is like watching Winnie the Pooh do heroin and then glass someone in a bar fight. It just isn't something that I look forward to seeing. And that's how I'm going to feel when I watch The Hobbit. Is
there a follow-up to after watching it? I'm curious.
I don't know. It's a good question. But there is art.
Who does the art?
I'll be 1 part entertained, 2 parts nostalgic, 2 parts irritated, 3 parts outraged, and 1 part oddly titillated. And I'll watch it, and I'll enjoy it, and afterwards I'll go home and feel more than slightly sad. Patrick.
Why would you be sad about it? Why would you be sad about seeing your high school crush?
All in all, does this scream to you as a person who has actually dived into reading feminist literature and takes an interest in...
I wouldn't have said that as a teenager up until 25 when I started down this path of deconstructing and learning.
As a person who knew you when you were a teenager, you wouldn't have said that shit.
I wouldn't even have said that shit.
That's weird shit to say.
I wouldn't even have thought that shit. And like, I'm open to admitting things that I have said in the past and thought in the past, and that, I would have thought it was weird even in that stage of my life.
Especially because
it's just such a weird response to a fucking movie adaptation.
Especially because at the time, again, he was almost 40 years old.
Yeah, and a feminist.
And a feminist. So from what you know about the Madonna horror complex, does that not seem like a good example?
Yeah, 100%. Because the person he's talking about only had value when she was pure.
It's actually very telling because he does view women, seemingly, in the same way that he views his favorite nostalgic media, which is in a way of like possession, as if, and books you can possess in an inward sort of way because you experienced that thing and nobody can take that experience from you. People are not like that. You cannot singularly experience a person and have that be like the way that you singularly experience a book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a really fucking weird thing to say.
But it's just like you know, we've all heard it. Like, as soon as that stuff comes up in conversation with men specifically, it's like, oh, I know her. Could have had it back in high school.
Yeah.
But I didn't. Like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. And it's like, now I would never. It's like, you were all about it years ago, and now her choice of work changes. What if she became a lawyer?
Maybe she just likes doing sex
like,
work.
It doesn't matter
No.
what they do. Like, you just completely casted everything aside because of her choice of work.
Yeah.
Because you don't like how she is now impure. And,
Like
and you painted this perfect picture of this, you know, innocent girl that has all these shared interests as you, which is fucking great, and you fantasize about it. If she, as a, you know, since she's a virgin. It's the same person. Did you ever stop liking Star Wars because you started book talking or booktubing?
No.
Like, you chose a profession and then you just, all right, yeah, I don't like Star Wars anymore. I don't like reading books anymore.
Yeah,
Like-
it is weird that he put it that way, as if now that she is not this like virginal version of herself, that she is a bastardized version of herself,
like,
that
oh,
takes away
shame
all
on
of these
you.
things that she was like valued for.
You're no longer a nerd like me. It's like,
You know nerds fuck, right?
have you seen the influx of sex workers that are now Twitch streamers that play games?
I would love to know his thoughts on that, and
Like,
by love to
I mean,
know.
they've always been gamers and nerds.
Yeah.
It's just their job was sex work.
So at this point in the video, Carlos and I start talking about masculinity quite a bit. Now, if you don't want to hear this part, you can skip ahead to this timestamp where I start actually talking about Patrick Rothfuss again, just me. But if you want to stay, you can listen to he and I talk about masculinity. And all of this does pertain to what I talk about with Patrick Rothfuss, because again, you cannot have a conversation about misogyny without talking about masculinity. So if you want to stay for that, you can. If not, skip ahead to this timestamp to go back to talking about Patrick Rothfuss in particular. It reminds me of Ernest Cline. He wrote Ready Player One. He wrote a poem once, a manifesto, saying that he wanted...
I can't wait for that video.
I already did it.
No, of us.
Oh.
I have to read that.
Oh, I would love to go through his sex manifesto with you. That would be so fun. Yeah, he wrote a manifesto talking about how porn isn't made for men like him because it doesn't have nerdy women in it. It's horrific. It's so dehumanizing, and in a way that he does not see. Like, he doesn't see it as anything other than, but what about me? I'm just trying to value the women that I value. And it's like, yeah, that's weird, man. That's a weird thing that you did.
There's definitely nerd women porn.
There is tons of nerd women porn.
I'm curious what the women in their life think about the comments that they make. You know, not a insulting way, like an actual, like, I'm genuinely curious.
So it was I think after 2015.
Do they have kids? Any of them?
Patrick Rothfuss has a kid.
Boy or girl?
Boy, I hope.
I hate that it takes men having daughters to change how they act. But
I mean, you didn't.
No, but I'm saying, like, traditionally, when men have boys, they just stay the same.
That's true.
And then teach their boys to become little versions of them. And then, like my dad did with me, and then I had to change a lot of that.
Yeah.
But as soon as they have daughters, they're like, oh shit, I have a daughter. They start painting their nails, doing things that aren't, you know, that don't fit into that, you know, mold that they were made into of what a man is supposed to be.
Would you say that reading Bell Hooks' The Will to Change was as helpful as reading that one guy who was
Man
in Jane
Enough?
the Man Enough? Would you say that that was just as helpful for you because as a guy, he talks about his relationship with his dad and his relationship with his daughter?
His book and his podcast were really good, but The Will to Change was probably more eye-opening from like a societal standpoint. His was more of a personally I took a lot in from it, but The Will to Change was more of a understanding the societal aspect of everything and where I fit in that piece, and then being a dad and a husband and stuff like that.
So I think that what is probably helpful is that everybody, including women and men, read The Will to Change. But on an individual level, men like Patrick Rothfuss would probably get a lot out of reading something like Man Enough by Justin Baldoni. Yeah.
I think yeah, because he talks about his own journey, and
Yeah.
that's really good. It's a good intro book, and that's the book that I recommend as an introduction. to people is man enough, just because it's his own story, his own walk through all of it, and him changing himself. But he also cites other books, and then that leads you to other books. I'm pretty sure he does talk about
he references the will to change. Yeah, I remember you telling me while you were reading it.
Yeah. So like even that, like referencing other, he's not saying this is the truth and all truth, because I went through it and this is what I believe. Like a lot of those other self-help books are for men, where like the rich guy that I was talking about earlier. There's this book that's going around at work, and it's written by one guy talking about his how to be a man, and he's one of those successful rich dudes who sees women as objects. And I'm just like, that's like, I'm not, it tells you the book is about it talks about women, like from the context of like their conversation. And I just said I will never read a book about women written by a man. If I'm going to read a book that's going to teach me about women and what women want out of a man, it's going to be written, I'm going to be more inclined to read from a woman's perspective, because they're the ones who we're talking about, right? Why do I care about what a rich dude thinks women want? And that's his whole book is about that. And I don't find that helpful at all. Now Justin Baldoni's book was about just being a man in society, and the bar that society sets on men that they expect you to reach, and like once you remove that bar, it's like your mental health is just infinitely better.
And I think that's another thing, is that like men like to say that women don't care about men's mental health.
I wish I had the name of the book that they're all fucking reading.
But Justin Baldoni is proof that when you approach this issue from the lens of like reading bell hooks and wanting to do better for yourself and for society and for women, it does benefit your mental health in a way that those books rich men are telling you like what a woman's role in your life should be.
And what women want.
It's like, when a woman is not interviewed.
and I even told them, I was like, all right, cool. Well, he says, be successful. And I'm like, his version of success is having a lot of money. What if you can't have a lot of money? Because realistically, you're probably not going to become a millionaire like him. I get everybody, they all want to be entrepreneurs. They all want to run their own business. But like statistically speaking, you're going to end up like me, working a normal job to pay your bills. You're not going to just blow up and become a millionaire. So you're already behind this guy. And now you're going to feel like you'll never be at this like level of a man, because I never made $1 million.
And there's a piece of their life that's going to feel emasculating.
And it's something so out of reach for the average person. And that's your starting point. Is this guy saying, make a lot of money, be successful.
And this is another example of how like there's a role that you have to fill of masculinity, and you are already failing at that. And then on top of that, this man is telling you there's a role that women have to fill in your life in order to make you fill that role of masculinity. On all accounts, you are going to fail, and then you're going to get angry. And who are you going to take that out on?
The 10 women that are in your mansion?
I mean, isn't that what Andrew Tate was in fact doing?
It's not a life that I would ever have wanted or want. So I guess I'll never understand. I'll never have those books being helpful to me. But Justin Baldoni's podcast also was pretty insightful. Where he just has dudes come in and they all just talk in like a constructive way. Like the guy that said forgot the guy's name, but he's a dancer, and he said he feels most comfortable when he's dancing. So
and like what man is he emulating? Because most men would say, well, that's not a man I want to emulate, because that's not like the pinnacle of masculinity that I've been taught to emulate.
So you just need to
make your own masculinity.
And that's he's like, so that's what I feel most comfortable with. That's what makes me feel like a man the most, or as happy as I could possibly be. Then why not just screw what everyone else says and just and fucking dance? Like, you can't tell me not to dance, Dad.
You can't tell me not to dance, Dad. I'm gonna be honest. I had already filmed me recording this portion, and I asked Carlos to do it with me because I felt very much that there are a lot of men who are going to be here who are not going to want to take me seriously. So I asked him to come in to buffer, which sucks, and I think proves the point that feminism is needed. The fact that was something I even had to worry about, because I faced so much shit in my comments already that I feel like I need another man to be a buffer between me and other men in order for them to even be willing to listen.
Because this doesn't fit into what they believe.
It's not confirming their...
No, it's not confirming their beliefs at all, and that's why the book that I was talking about earlier, I wish I knew the name of it, is working so well with these dudes that I know because it is validating
Right.
what they already believe, and it's not contesting their beliefs at all.
Yeah,
like reading,
it's reaffirming it.
Like reading The Will to Change is not going to reaffirm any of those things that you were taught growing up,
Mm-hmm.
especially in my household.
Yeah.
Like that didn't reaffirm anything. That made me actually think, holy shit, good thing I stopped doing those things, or I need to stop doing that thing.
Yeah. And in a way, it is that for me too, because of us having sons.
Yeah,
and
that's
also
huge.
because I don't feel the need to put pressure on you to be a certain type of masculine man,
Mm-hmm.
Which was something ingrained into me in like growing up Fundy. I told you, like, my mom and my sister would both be like, don't chase men, make sure they chase you, because
Yeah.
that makes them feel more masculine.
I mean, one of my hobbies is literally cooking.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those like things growing up where I learned how to cook, but I was taught that my place is the workplace and your place is at home.
Yeah, and
I need to be the sole provider, and it's like, honestly, if y'all wanted that, you shouldn't have fucked up the economy for us, but we kind of have to be dual income now.
yeah.
But yeah, it's like we shut that shit down almost immediately after I was born, like
Yeah.
a little bit before that, but like
It was a little bit.
my assistance at home definitely, was a lot more after I was born. Say what you
and-
will about the millennials, but we are hands-on fathers.
Yeah, it's true. I think that the stark contrast between your upbringing as a boy and our boy's upbringing
Totally different.
is so worlds apart. I mean, we like paint our kids' nails. He loves rainbows. He wears rainbow leggings.
And that kind of stuff would not fly.
And we
in my
actively
household.
tell our kids when they ask, is that a boy thing? Which is something they pick up elsewhere. We tell them there is no boy thing, there is no girl thing, because we don't want them to find their masculinity in things or other people. We want them to find it in themselves.
And we teach them to contest people actively, even
Yeah.
their teachers, when they try to assign genders to items.
Yeah, we started telling our oldest, make sure you tell them that if they say there's boy things at school, that they shouldn't be teaching you gender theory, because that's the language
God,
that
we're
the
so
fascists
fucking
use.
petty.
We're so petty. We're like, well, if the fascists are gonna say it, we're gonna flip it around.
And like even like it took me until I was like in my 20s to admit my favorite color was purple. Like that's how bad it was.
Yeah.
It's always been
Shout out
purple.
Ridge Wallets. Yeah, shout out to his purple Ridge Wallet, by the way.
It's lavender.
It's lavender. It's beautiful.
It is. Super light.
It holds multiple cards plus room for cash. Our youngest has started saying, is that a girl color, is that a boy color? And then we have to reaffirm that there are no boy colors and girl colors, and then he feels open to saying, oh good, because my favorite color is pink today. My favorite color is rainbow today. It starts very young, and them having to see this like pinnacle of what masculinity is and live up to it starts so young. Remember when this pissed me off so bad. Remember when our youngest went to do his speech evaluation, and they showed him a picture
Yeah.
of a kid with long hair and a skirt and a kid with short hair and
And it was
shorts,
confusing to him.
and they were like, which one is the girl?
And he's just like,
What do you mean which one is?
had long hair then too.
Yeah, like what do you mean which one is the girl? What, because one person's in a skirt?
That's an evaluation, so it's one of those answers that he has to get right, but we didn't teach
We didn't
it
teach
that
that.
way.
Yeah. And he
So-
was already speech delayed, so it was even further fucking confusing. This
Yes.
is the hardest test I've ever had to take in my life. That gender construct, be asked of my kid at 3, was so weird to me.
I'm like, if I didn't have the job I had, I'd have long hair.
Yeah.
Like, I've always had long hair.
Yeah, and we let them pick out when they, wear long hair, when they wear short hair, if they want to grow it out. So
And they only want to cut it because my hair.
it's such a stark contrast between my brother had a different upbringing than I did, obviously, growing up as a fundy boy than I did. All that stuff about him being the one to lead and him being the one to, that has caused like a lot of, I don't want to like shit talk my brother. I love my brother, but I think that has caused
It
contention
causes tension between
him and
his wife, yeah.
and his wife, because he's not always the one to pick the right thing, and that having that fundy upbringing, which you didn't have a fundy upbringing, but you had a very like gender specific upbringing, that has done no good for my family, for your family. So
It's crazy because like even the stuff that they would try to teach, they weren't even doing themselves.
Yeah,
That's the
isn't that
craziest
fucking
part.
weird?
Yeah.
So
Like-
fucking weird.
Like you need to be home taking care of the kid and taking care of the home.
Yeah.
When I was raising you, I had a job.
Which is it? Which one do you want me to do? That was very helpful. I think we had a really good conversation.
I hope so. I just kind of fumble.
No,
Over-
you're very, very smart. There's literally no other guy that I can talk to about.
There's no guy that I could talk to.
Isn't that sad?
It's just Alex. Shout out Alex.
Shout out Alex.
Yeah.
There's literally.
If he's here.
Isn't that depressing?
It's like, and even that, like, it's tough.
Yeah.
Like, because, like, I want, you know, of course, I'm still a dude, so, like, I want what's best for all my fellow men.
Just
you
want
know?
all my homies to make
Like,
it,
seriously,
like your
yeah,
cousin would
but,
say.
But it's like, there's so much contention when you call them out on little things. And it's like you're gonna fight me on this? Like, dude, like, what does that solve? You're still wrong.
It's the same thing that, like, men feel like if we get into a fight, then I can prove that I'm the man here. I can use this situation. You're just a player in this situation.
But
I can use to prove my masculinity.
Most of them in their head, they're screaming, "Somebody stop this!" This is a 3-hour video.
This is a 3-hour video.
Now we're not even talking about the dude anymore.
I tried to rope it back to Patrick, but I think we've lost it at this point. But it was a really good conversation on masculinity, which I appreciate because when we're talking about misogyny, there's really no way to talk about it without talking about masculinity in depth. So.
And I hope that comments towards him are received as hate in any kind of way. It's just constructive criticism.
Just constructive criticism, one feminist dude to another.
I think that every dude can be helped if they're willing to listen.
I agree.
They just have to have the will to change. I'm done.
Okay, that wraps up Carlos's portion. Okay, now I'm going to head back into the actual portion of the video where I'm talking about Patrick Rothfuss. Okay, thanks for being patient. When he talks about the responsibility of the creator, that line coming from a guy who writes women in a way that, and this has been pointed out to him, is pretty rife with implicit misogyny. I can give you a brief overview of my thoughts from the last time I read The Name of the Wind and the Wise Man's Fear back in 2018, which is that I feel that women are talked about in a way that doesn't represent them as fully human and often infantilizes them, and the sex goddess stuff kind of makes me uncomfortable. And Denna is at best a manic pixie dream girl. But these two blogs, Daily Geekette and Swan Tower, have done extensive detailing, particularly the Swan Tower one. They put more work into verbalizing the issues than I have, and they've already done the work, so I thought, let's just reference them since they did such a great and fantastic job, and let's uplift the voices of other women who have talked about this. So Daily Geekette says, I was only 40 pages into the book, rapidly falling in love with the poetic prose and fantastical atmosphere, of which I fully agree. When a sudden realization shook me out of my enjoyment, the only references to women so far had been as amusements, flirts, and whores. First, in a characterization scene between protagonist Quoth and his male protege, Bast jokes of chasing young wives and daughters as a distraction from his studies. Note how they are already defined by their relation to men. This is a really great point. Then the first female characters to actually appear, and the only ones to exist outside the story within a story so far by my current progress, enter Quoth's tavern. Their function is to contribute to the lively atmosphere by flirting. While the fire crackles and someone knocks over a chair, this was followed by two distasteful metaphors playing on the concept that low-class women do not deserve respect. In the first, Quoth instructs Bast to carry his sword carefully as if it were a lady rather than carelessly as if it were a wench. In the second, Bast berates Quoth for sneaking out in the middle of the night, leaving only a note as if Bast were some dockside whore. And this is not the first or last time that Patrick talks about whores in a way that makes me uncomfortable. Although I hoped the book would get better as the story progressed, I felt these first few examples very clearly set the tone for how women would be portrayed, irrelevant except in terms of their sexuality and or their benefit and or other benefit to men. And she references this very in-depth post about this book in particular by Marie Brennan, who is an author, saying, a catalog of every female character in The Name of the Wind, and with either dialogue or a name, and gives a brief description. She makes many good points, and I highly recommend you read her analysis. After reading her list, I noted that of the 29 female characters listed, the sole or primary role of at least a third of them is sexual. There are some interesting female characters, namely Quoth's mother, but she is still given a supporting role in her husband's creative endeavors, and their sexual relationship is highly played up. So Marie literally lists all of the women characters. She goes through the book and reads and lists everyone that is brought up and discusses how they are talked about. And just to be clear, we are not a bunch of women just like raining on Pat's parade for shits and giggles. He was right about one thing. Writers do have a responsibility, and we are holding him to that. We are holding him to this standard that he already believes in. We can hold him responsible and also say that we liked other aspects of what he wrote, which is why I bought not just the first book, but the second one and read them both. So in this incredibly detailed post, Marie explains, I will count as a female character any woman who is distinguished from the backdrop by either a name or dialogue. The bar, it is low. Generalities like references references to wives or a girl doing something in the background do not count. If I've missed anybody, do let me know, but anybody I've missed will be quite minor indeed, given that I was keeping notes as I read. This is incredible amount of detail and labor. When the topic including women comes up, or people of color, or gay people, or whoever, there are a great many authors who say they are happy to include such characters when there's a reason for them to be there. I look at this book and wonder, what's the reason for all these characters to be men? Chronicler could have been a woman. Bast could have been a woman. We're told that men outnumber women at the university by about 10 to 1. This is both a choice Rothfuss made, rather than some immutable historical fact he had no choice but to accurately represent, and still not a reason why we see so few women here. With 9 masters and a chancellor, the odds that none of them would be a woman is 39%. Sure, institutional bias would affect that. If women are that small of a minority, it's not going to be equal opportunity selection for the top roles. The fact remains, time and time again, whether consciously or unconsciously, and my assumption is that it's unconscious, personally, Rothfuss made choices that resulted in him writing about very few women, most of them only fleetingly, many of them in sexualized or objectified ways. Regarding the object of Quoth's affection, Denna, who is absolutely a manic pixie dream girl, in my opinion, Marie says, for literally 68 pages, almost 10% of the book, from when we get told she's coming to when she finally appears, she isn't a character, she's a thing. A beautiful thing that shows up in the nick of time to help Quoth when he needs it. The men go on for literally 4 pages about her appearance, with Bast saying her nose was a little narrow and crooked, but Quoth countering that this did not diminish her beauty in the slightest. I actively remember this scene. Like, I remember reading it and being like, are we gonna get somewhere with this or not? We hear about her hair color, her eye color, a whole paragraph devoted to those. Her lips, another paragraph. We get all of that before we get her name, and then another page about her beauty before the story goes on, including this gem. Finally, say that she was beautiful. This is all that can be well said, that she was beautiful through to her bones, despite any flaw or fault. She was beautiful to Quoth at least. And here's the most aggravating part. These problems are easy to fix. It doesn't require a massive rethinking of the story to move it into a zone where I wouldn't have felt the need to make this post. You don't have to redesign the world. All you have to do is look at some of the character and ask, is there a reason for them to be male? 1, don't objectify the women. It isn't just Denna. Take a look at the original stats and see how many of the female characters are in some fashion sexualized, or else exist purely to give a small bit of aid to Quoth. By my count, it's 15 of 29. 2, ask yourself from time to time whether there's a reason character X has to be a man instead of the other way around. Rothfuss said in a Q&A that when a friend of his read his high school novel, he was shocked to hear her say that he had no female characters in it at all. He hadn't even noticed the absence until she pointed it out. He told that story to illustrate the problem, and he's done better here, but there still is a vast space for improvement. I said this before, but I need to repeat it for emphasis. This isn't even really about the name of the win. It's an example of the problem, not the cause of it. It's a case in point, a thing to look at when you want to see what absence and objectification look like and consider how easy they would be to avoid. I'm not asking for Denna to be more awesome than Quoth. I'm not saying that precisely 50% of the characters need to be women or I won't read the book. I enjoy the name of the win. I would have enjoyed it more if I hadn't been constantly noting the lack of women. I'm just pointing out, for fuck's sake, we exist. We aren't even rare. Why aren't we in the story? Why don't we matter? It's not rocket science. Authors ought to be able to get this right. And the thing is, Rothfuss knows this on some level too. As one comment points out, he's a self-proclaimed feminist, and that has led to some interesting blog posts. I want to quickly point out before I move on that I know Marie didn't touch on the second book in her analysis, and she brings this up. It is 1,000 pages long, so let's cut her some fucking slack, first of all. But a comment brings up a point that I want to highlight though. The second book by Rothfuss is better, but not by that much. Quoth encounters a culture with female warriors. We meet a few of them, and one in particular teaches Quoth. However, the first member of that culture who he meets, befriends, and learns from is a man. Why? Why not a woman in that role? I totally agree. Like, thinking back on that, there was absolutely no reason why not to make the first person that he met from that society a woman. Sure, a lot of them he does meet towards the end of the book, and they do start training him. But why? Like, what legitimate reason is there for him to not have met the first one and have that be a woman? Another comment said, I just read The Slow Regard of Silent Things, told from Ori's point of view, whose life is lived in gathering gifts for him and waiting for his next appearance in her life. See, suddenly I'm kind of glad that I didn't read the novella. I mean, I'm not opposed to reading it. I'm just saying that wouldn't I kind of have had a bad time being, you know, a woman? There are implicit ways that misogyny comes out. And again, misogyny is not just hating women. It's not just calling women stupid sluts and telling them to get back in the kitchen and make you a sandwich or beating them or killing them. These are explicit forms of misogyny. Misogyny describes a range of behavior and thought patterns that even women can and do internalize. All misogyny harms, whether it's implicit or explicit, things that women and other marginalized genders experience due to misogyny and gender inequality include decreased rates of education education, unequal pay for the same employment, higher risk of psychosocial issues, domestic partner violence, so domestic abuse, being targeted more for sexual violence, increased stress due to those of us who have the capacity for pregnancy having to be pregnant, and then most of us end up doing more child rearing responsibilities than our partners. Most of that is explicit misogyny, but is implicit misogyny really helping with those problems? No, it is exacerbating it. And what Patrick has shown to play into time and time again, both in his blog posts and his videos and his fiction, is implicit misogyny. For instance, in his post about The Hobbit, he's demonstrating a textbook example of what playing into the Madonna whore dichotomy looks like, which is this idea that women are either a Madonna or a whore. And I would say that Denna is a good example of this too. It's creating like a binary version of sexuality in women in particular, categorizing a woman as either good and pure, the Madonna, or promiscuous and bad, the whore, which is not just Denna. Like when he's talking to Bast about the sword, he's saying, carry it like a lady. It negatively impacts the well-being and the sexual function of all genders to believe in this thing. And it harms relationships between genders. It hurts the men who believe in it hurts the women who they believe it about, and it hurts the relationship between those two. Feminist theory suggests that the Madonna whore complex is rooted in misogyny, which is the argument that I'm making, because it promotes patriarchal beliefs, and it ultimately aims to control women, particularly their sexuality and overall with their bodily autonomy. The American Psychiatric Association says about the Madonna whore complex, the Madonna whore dichotomy, men who perceive women's nurturance and sexuality as mutually exclusive, endorse patriarchy, and show lower relationship satisfaction. Maybe, Patrick, the problem is not that you cannot get a date because women want Jareth, but maybe it's that you believe in things like the Madonna whore complex and it's causing you to have low value for women and therefore they don't want to date you. And it's a fixable problem. So the APA says the Madonna whore dichotomy denotes polarized perception of women in general as either good, chaste, and pure Madonnas or as bad, promiscuous, and seductive whores, whereas prior theories focused on unresolved sexual complexes or evolved psychological tendencies. Feminist theory suggests that the MWD stems from a desire to reinforce patriarchy. Surveying 108 heterosexual Israeli men revealed a positive association between Madonna whore complex endorsement and patriarchy enhancing ideology as assessed by social dominance orientation, preference for hierarchical social structures, so patriarchy, and gender-specific system justification, so the desire to maintain the social hierarchy under patriarchy, and sexist attitudes like benevolent and hostile sexism, sexual objectification of women, and sexual double standards. In addition, MWD endorsement negatively predicted men's romantic relationship satisfaction. These findings support the feminist notion that patriarchal arrangements have negative implications for the well-being of men as well as women. Specifically, the Madonna whore dichotomy not only links to attitudes that restrict women's autonomy, but also impairs men's most intimate relationships with women. Okay, but that Hobbit post, that was years ago, right? Right, it was, sure. You'd hope that after years of calling himself a feminist, getting years of feedback, and even having that baseline of you knew it was wrong to not have any women in your story. So if you can grow from that, you can grow further, right? You'd think that if he made progress years ago, then he could further make progress, having years of feedback from readers. You'd think that he would be further along than he is, but it was just 4 weeks ago that he said, women don't like me because they want bad men like David Bowie's Jareth. It's not a very feminist thing to say. It's Bad's own version of the nice guys finish last idea mentality, where men believe that they don't have a chance between women always go for the bad boys. This is how a lot of men start down the incel pipeline. That's concerning. Too often do I see people, even including women though, believing this and confirming their own bias with bad science. I don't know how Pat came to the conclusion Jareth caused a bunch of women to have this like entire generation of women who want bad boys. Like, how did Jareth cause that? How did you come to that conclusion? If a lot of women around him do want bad boys, and like we haven't even defined what a bad boy is, they probably want them for the same reason that we all pick particular partners. A combination of like culturally informed and personally informed expectations. So like, what is bad anyway, right? One article that I saw says, look, we proved women want bad men, and the study that they said proved it. It was women saying, oh, men who smoke are bad. So is it smoking? Or again, if that's true, again, also this is because of cultural norms defining our attraction. It's definitely not some mammalian thing because we're the only mammal who smokes. Cultural norms, a lot of them are just unrealistic expectations we make of each other and ourselves and reinforce upon each other together. Patrick feeling more manly because women are scared of a horror movie, and especially having like two women be scared of it. That's not a mammalian thing, that's a cultural thing. He's comparing himself to other men that he's seen probably in real life and in media, where the more scared, the more women are, and the more he is the singular stoic man in the position, the sexier and more manly he is, and feels that he is perceived as sexy and manly. These are things that humans made up. These are not mammalian biological instincts. These are things that humans made up, and we could simply, I mean not simply, we could decide as a collective to have a conversation of maybe we need to have better standards than that. Meeting this incredibly rigid list of particular behaviors based on what gender you align with in these social situations is not working for us in finding partners. It's leaving out people, certainly, who those things do not come naturally to. And they are not less or more manly or less or more feminine for being stoic in the face of women being terrified. I'm not less womanly if I don't jump at horror novels, and my husband isn't less manly if he jumps in my lap during a horror novel. What? Horror movie. Wow. I'm always talking about books, aren't I? So if I am like sitting there very stoic watching a horror movie, that doesn't make me less womanly. And if my husband is jumping in my lap over this horror movie, that doesn't make him less manly. We do not have to adhere to these strict gender ideas and this binary of behavior in order to be our best self. Your relationship with your masculinity should be defined by you, not defined by cultural norms and reenacting scenes that you've watched other men play out with women, where the woman is really just a supporting character in this scene where the goal is to make you feel masculine. I want to say that to Patrick, and I would also say it to his main character, Quoth, both of whom I would highly recommend, as I usually do, to read The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. Who saw it coming? Okay, that was Authors Behaving Badly, Patrick Rothfuss, and The Silly Man's Misogyny. The Silly Man's Misogyny by Patrick Rothfuss. I don't think he's silly. I do think he's smart, and I think he's better than this. I think he could do better if he put his back into it. You could start with The Will to Change, and then head over to Angela Davis after that, okay? Alright, thanks for watching. Leave your comments and questions down below. I'm sure there's lots of men here who are upset and calling me fat, and I don't care. You all came for Jay Kristoff. Welcome back. Alright, see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye! Hi, before I go out to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Allie Magpie, Brittany Bobitney, Cami, Chris, Claire, Des Roberts, DJ Rocktopus, Ellie, Emperor's New Blues, Aaron, Eric, Harley, Jack and Jill, John E, Kaleno K, sorry, Casey McKenzie, Kate W, Caitlin M, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lex, Alice, Peggy Lou, Rain, Reese, SJ, Samar, Scarlett, Shiny, and SMK. Thank you all so much for being a friend. And last but not least, before I go to say thank you for being a friend to my Potato Starch Marxist patrons, and those are AM Angel, Amanda, Andy, Angelica, Anita, Artie the Ninth, Ashley H, Ava, Ballads and Bookends, BB, Beck, Blythe, Bookish Brainrot, Bree, Brianne, Caitlin, Cardinal Ginger, Carlin, Cassandra, Catherine, Kathy, Chris, CJ, Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Corey, Darren, Deborah, Dex, Diet Goth, Dorian, Ebby, Ember, Emily A, Emily L, Emma O.A, Aaron, Ezra, Hannah C, Hannah T, Harpy Kuro, Haley G, Ilianaka, India Inks, JM Tennant, Jay is on Olympus, JT, Jen Michelle, Jenny G, Jess Burler, Jessa Sue, Jillian, Jojo Bookish, Jess Pugsley, Kaylee, Kat, Catherine M, Katie, Katya, Kayala, Kendra, Not Another Cowboy Romance, are you kidding me? With a K. Kylie, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura, Lazarus Ray. Y'all are killing me with your name changes on Patreon. Library of Scars, Lisa B, LP, LP, sorry, Luciri, Luna Moth, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Madison, Marcella, Marquita, Malara, MK Books, Molly, James, Nat, Natalie, Never, Nicole G, Nicole R, Nyan Binary, Paige P, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Pixel Stars, Piratheon, Rachel B, Rat Sarah, Reba, Rebecca, Robin, Rosie Thorns, Rowan, Socoria, Sadie, Samantha, Sarah C, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Shamed, Shannon, Sheen Onion, Sheena K, Sean, Talia, Three Old Dogs, Tiana, Tina, Toast, Trash Can Teddy, Tito Phoenix, Wildcat, and Ryder A. Thank you all so much for being a friend.